the Village Athlete podcast, hosted by two village idiots.
What's that?
The village people. The guy with the construction helmet is here with me this morning, today. It's the Village Athlete podcast.
We're on. We got here. We made it.
Finally. I didn't actually think it was going to happen actually this quickly because we started in 2019, but I'm glad we're here. Now, I got to get some introductions out of the way first because people were wondering, okay, who are these two idiots and why are they in a flash setting like this? I got to be official when I introduce you, first of all, right? So let me just, for everyone watching.
You're not going to be official.
Well, I'm going to be official.
Okay, go.
Susu Milo Sunga.
Oh.
Whaleanga Fulu, Leo Pepe, Nigel, Vangana. But for the purpose of this,
Wooshka.
can I just call you Little Wayne?
You can call me.
Is that okay?
You can call me Owls. You know that song?
Yes,
you were on radio for a bit?
Can I call you Nigel?
Nigel. I
Okay.
love it.
All right, so welcome to the Village Athlete podcast. I'll give you credit for this because this is your brainchild and I've just strung along for the ride. So who are you and what are we doing here?
Man, so we got here. I'm not going to, don't make it too serious, but some of the stuff that we want to have a yarn about and have a chat about help. At the end of the day, the idea came from a past life that I used to live. I was involved in sports for a while. Come through the rugby league world into the professional system. But when I worked behind the scenes and understood the business of sport, man, it's a different beast out there, you know. And a lot of people, I haven't been in it for a few years now, but a lot of people still ask me for advice or ask me for help in different areas or just to understand it. So I thought instead of taking all those phone calls, let's just put it out there through this.
Yeah. That's not what we put down in our synopsis when we presented it to each other.
Our synopsis. Lactic acid.
So, agree, and hopefully throughout this conversation, people will get to know who you are as the former athlete, professional athlete in the NRL. There's a lot of titles, there's a lot of things that go on your CV. That's the only bit of credit I'm going to give you. You're a well-accomplished athlete, which is one of the reasons why we're here. Also, you touched on about a journey, not only as an athlete, but I think as specific people. And this podcast is going to be really helpful in unpacking the cultural journey of the village athlete from around the globe. And you representing the athlete, but you're also a dad. And I'm representing the village, who's also a dad, who's got, I'm very passionate about where this is going because I've got an investment with my kids as well in this. And the challenges and all that comes with being an athlete trying to navigate your way in the world of sports today, right?
Yep. And all the way through elite sports. And I know there's a lot of support out there for athletes in general, but how do you actually understand, because Pacific athletes are different. And it's I guess if you're from Germany, or you're from Sweden, or you're from Japan, wherever you are, there's a different cultural thread that comes with every athlete. And in the Pacific, we're no different. So like there's a whole heap of stuff that comes from the Pacific that a lot of people don't understand. And I think one of the things that I found is that we actually have a lot of Pacific athletes coming through really quickly, all over the place, all over the world. But how much do we actually know about them? And also how much can we help them? But parents as well. How do the parents actually support those Pacific kids, trying to sort of, like your one, how do you actually support them on their journey as well? And that fine balance between, tough love, support or too much pressure.
It's a massive undertaking. But not only I feel like this isn't going to just be, it's going to uncover more than the athlete, As Pacific Islanders, both you and I are Samoan. I'm hoping that this is going to, whoever's watching, regardless, right, they'll get an insight and an understanding who we are as people. Because I'll just say this to you now. You're right, there's a lack of understanding and maybe a lack of insight into who we are as people. And I'll just say this once. I will go through a list. You'll be able to come up with this. Not every Samoan is related to The Rock. We'll put it out there. Not all of us can sing, right? Because there's this perception, or there's this thing that maybe people who don't know Pacific Islanders, oh, you're a Samoan, surely you can sing,
Yeah.
or you can fight.
You play guitar.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Am I right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But even with sports as well, yeah. So a lot of those stereotypes come into it. And how do we, we've got a whole heap that can, but there's also a whole heap that can't.
Yeah.
You know? Did you do choir at church?
Of course I
Did
did.
you do
I did choir at
church?
school.
They put you in the back row? Were you in the back row? Did you get any lines?
Oh.
Because that's it. Some of us can't sing. Right? So it's like, I think just unpacking as we go along, you know. And we'll bring some people in to help with that as well, you know. Have a chat to their journeys and what have you. But there's a lot of similarities and a lot of differences. And I think it'll help. It'll help everyone around the individual, sports systems around the world. It'll help them just understand our people a little bit more. And then they can sort of set up systems to look after them better.
Thanks for asking me about who I am. Appreciate it. That's a really good question.
Okay, so here's the reason, and the reason that I reached out to you whenever it was to see if we could sort of have a crack at this. Because I needed someone who knows who's got a face for radio, but also who knows how to talk into mics, who knows how to sort of how to interview people. You've done radio
Be honest,
for,
man.
No, but you did radio for how long?
Yeah, but
20 years or something like that. Like
yeah.
I remember listening to you as a kid.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. No,
but you need someone who knows how to draw out the information from people.
For people watching right now, the real reason that when he asked me to come on board, he said, "I needed someone who knows how to push the buttons, and you know how to push the buttons."
We got no buttons on here, but that was your world.
Yeah.
Right? So what do you introduce yourself then? Tell me about you, because I can tell you a bit about what I know about you.
You did it.
Breakfast radio for however many years.
Yeah, I've been in radio for a little while. Yeah, and I feel like, and you know this, and for people tuning in, I had a really, I've been in a few radio stations. I think I found my calling where I'm at now, at a Christian radio station. I really feel like I'm offering something to some people and bringing them closer to God. I feel like that was my calling. I came in here, actually, into Life FM for selfish reasons, actually. I needed something to bring me closer to God. But when I got here, I found out very quickly that other people needed it first before I did. So anyway, that's where I've landed here at Life FM. But I've also done other radio gigs. And I did an online thing with a good friend of mine who you know, who's not here with us anymore, Pua Mangasiva.
Yeah.
Rest in love, my good friend. And when you spoke to me about coming on and doing the Village Athlete, I said to you, it's been a minute, Oos. I think it's time for me to come back and do something with a mate. So thank you for asking me in the first place to come here. So hopefully you and I, with the lens that we both have, will be able to, as you said in the beginning, just help young athletes, young Pacific athletes, help the village come together to be able to offer some advice or guide that individual through the journey that they're going through. Because as you said it right at the beginning, it's a different journey for Pacific people.
Yeah. And when you said, because I remember that day we caught up. So when you said that you wanted to come in and do it with a mate, right? So that wasn't available, so you jumped on here. Right? So now you're here. So let's just try and work it out. But that's the thing, right? Because it's like our people, when you spoke about the stuff that you're doing now in the faith journey, right? But a lot of our Pacific people are all spiritual in all different components, right? So that's another thing that we can unpack because, and I remember when I was in teams and professional teams, and their team bonding thing would be go to let's get the team together, let's get it united, let's all go to the pub, let's all go to a bar, and then go to the races and put some bets on. But for a lot of our people, that doesn't resonate with us. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, so how does that work for everyone? And it's things like that.
You must have
Things
seen
like that.
some players who sort of wanted to go along with it because that was a call of the team, but then they were challenged because of their faith.
Well, you're in the middle.
Yeah. So, did you saw that a bit?
Heaps.
Really?
And you know what happens is, because if you're in the professional environment, right, it's going to take a while to get there, and you've been on a journey already, pretty hard one. gone through years and years of prep and, ups and downs, ebbs and flows and all the rest of it, right? That was shout out to Isaac too, by the way. You won't know. One of the other the young brothers doing some good things, Isaac John, but he's got a show as well. But it's like, it's just unpacking their journey. And what I saw is a lot of guys get stuck in or land in the middle. And which way do you go? All right, do you stick with the team or the system or the club ethos at the time where it's like, listen, we all stick together, we go doing this, we go to battle together on the field. Or it's like you as an individual, especially in team sports, because it's like if you come in as an individual with a different sort of, a different mindset or a different sort of perspective on life, and it doesn't necessarily fit the team ones, then you can go either way.
Yeah.
You either merge into the team one, or the team and the system allows you to be an independent and individual within that environment. So it sort of caters for you and it comes back this way a bit. And that's a good system if it caters to the individual, but still falling under the team umbrella of what the team stands for. But not all systems understand it or understand what to look for.
Yeah. And then that kid, that person, that athlete who's in the middle, maybe let's look at that, who's in the middle, if they've been brought up in a very good village, let's just say, the parents are supportive of that child, that athlete, they're talking to that athlete all the time, they have got a solid base, then that athlete, regardless of what situation you're in, whether it's professional sport or whatever, they've got a better understanding. But for Pacific families, whose first line of communication between the parent and the athlete may sometimes be not English, for example, right?
Yeah.
That's broken already. So that person, that athlete, is going to struggle to be able to go, okay, which way do I go? Because I'm taught here, but I can't communicate to mum and dad because they don't understand.
Yeah, but also, you know why they can't communicate? Maybe because they're not the oldest in the family. Because the older brother or the older sister talks on behalf of all the kids, which is just a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like now kid number 3 or 4. So I was, in my family, I'm kid number 5, right?
Out of
7. Right?
So what, the youngest, second to youngest? Or
yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
Yeah. Third youngest. Yeah. What school did you go to again?
Divided by 7.
Okay, so that's in Auckland. But it's like I never spoke as a kid. And I never needed to, because it was like, okay, whatever the older brother decided on behalf of all of us, okay, sweet, you're our voice. Take it to mum and dad. You know, you make the call for us. And then if there's discussions, it's that way. But if kid number 4, kid number 5 ends up in the professional team, there's a good chance none of the other siblings are there. So then you have to find your voice really quickly. Or you end up staying quiet, just rolling with the punches. And you might end up, doing things that don't really sit too well with you, but you actually don't know how to communicate it out. But at the same time, you know what? For a lot of times, and I think it's not the system's fault, because the system don't even know we exist.
Well, this is it. There's a lack of understanding. I feel like today there's an emphasis and there's an effort for people to understand. Let's put league as an example, the NRL. I mean, what's the makeup of Pacific athletes in the NRL? Well over 50%. Am I right?
Not well over. It's around 52%. Yeah. And the guys and the girls, it's a little bit higher. Right. I think 56%.
So they would recognise that they need to be able to have systems in place to be able to deal with the athletes, right?
Of course.
So now
they have now. Yeah. So when I finished playing in 09 pro, I got offered a role behind the scenes. So I went and worked behind the scenes for about 10 years at head office. And when I went in there, I remember looking around on that first day, and I'm looking around like this going, I'm the only brown guy here. But we were, at the time, the game was 30% Pacific, Pacifica, right? And I'm like, So all these people in here are helping to sort of grow the game. I was working in education and wellbeing at the time. We're helping players with their life off the field and their families, the transition out of the game, the young guys coming in, that whole system. And I'm thinking, how do they actually sort of support the Pacific component of our game? when there's no one in here from the Pacific? I didn't understand that. And after speaking to a few people, and this was based in head office in Sydney, right, in Australia. And at head office, I was the only guy in there of about, I don't know, maybe 70, 80 people. But at the same time, we were less than 1% of the population in Australia. So I did my maths that I learned from St. Paul's College in Auckland. That
you actually at 14th form.
you actually there actually is a lot of people in Australia who have never grown up with Pacific people.
Yep.
And a chunk of them would have been in the office at the time. So how do we actually get them to understand, to look after our athletes and families a bit better in our communities? Well, we have to teach them. You know?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Very similar. I mean, here in the environment that I'm in now, right? We've got a great supportive crew who are non-Pacific. They understand the importance of what we're trying to do, right? But as Pacific people, again, let's unpack this for somebody who's not Pacific. When you and I see each other if we're catching up for coffee, first thing I do to you is either come and punch you or tease you, right? Right? In an environment where it's non-Pacific, that's sort of not the go sometimes. You know, if I was to go, right? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tease you.
Yeah. If you're Samoan Tongan, that's a historical context where you're allowed to tease each other like that. You know? It's not bad anymore. I know back in the days it used to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah, there's subtle differences. And again, it's just a lack of understanding. I want to go back to you saying that the eldest in the family as well, sort of.
How many
It's a
years?
talking piece. Yeah, so there's 5, and my eldest brother, sister, me, and my younger sister.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, and the eldest being the voice piece, which is true in island families, and the eldest also, unfortunately, is the guinea pig.
yeah.
Good and bad, you know.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I still to this day feel so sorry for my brother, who was the guinea pig, who went through a whole lot of stuff with my parents, my dad in particular, because, you know, these guys my parents and your parents, they come from Samoa, come from a Pacific island trying to set up shop here, not understanding totally how to go. So they're trying to navigate their way as well. And so my brother got, you know, wasn't a smooth ride for him. But I think they learnt as it got down the order. So when it got to me, they knew that what they did to my brother didn't work. But I had to understand, okay, I've got to do this myself. I've got to understand, okay, this is where my parents are at. But in order for me to sort of navigate my way, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
But it takes an individual. What is it about the individual that makes them sort of step out and try to lead and find their own way, as opposed to another sibling, let's say someone else who was in my spot, who didn't, who saw what he saw before him, and sort of like, oh, I'm going to shut up shop. I'm not going to say a thing. So what's the difference between what I did, what I've done, and somebody else? And you've seen this a whole lot with young players coming through the system who don't know how to communicate and find their feet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And you know, one of the things as well, it's not just in the sporting environment, it's everywhere in the world. Well, if you're in the corporate game and you sort of go into you're, I guess, climbing the ladder, and the higher up you get, the less likely there are Pacific people wherever you are, right? So you would have had to, so you were number 4 in your family, with out of voice as a kid, or maybe with a quiet voice, you know, based on whatever your brother's decisions were, the older sibling, but ended up working in radio, where you had to talk every day.
Yeah.
So how did that happen?
Well, this is what I'm saying. I made the choice that I wanted to. Well, you know, you learn as you go through school. I mean, I'll
Did you talk much at school?
Yeah. You know,
I can see that.
Because, you know, but that was all I was good at. You know,
Yeah.
I dabbled in rugby and whatever, but, you know. Well, you can see my tapes if you look up on but, you know, I couldn't do anything else. I felt like communicating was where my space was at.
Yeah.
Being a communicator. But I can't, I'm trying to, when I look back at my life, I'm trying to think, okay, when did I make a decision to go, seriously, I want to do something better for myself?
Did you stumble into that? Like, say, for me, I didn't grow up wanting to be a professional athlete. I was just playing down the park with my mates. You
As
know,
we
and
did,
you
right?
end up jamming it, you know,
Yeah.
and then you know, and I remember because when I first got asked to join a rep environment, guy come up to me in one of the games. So I grew up in Grey Lynn, right, as you know, down the road here
In Auckland City.
Central Auckland.
So that's not really
many
where
moons
Islanders
ago.
are.
Not anymore. They landed here many moons ago, but there's not many around. Gentrification, my man.
Oh, yeah.
But it is what it is. Can you spell it? Did they teach you that word at last year?
Lactic acid.
So we had we didn't have many non-Pacific people, right? So there wasn't too many Palangis or whoever that were in the environment, right? We had a handful here and there. So one of them come down and my coach down at Richmond, and he asked me, or my coach comes in, hey, there's a guy outside wants to talk to you. Who? Asked Palangi, dude. And normally back then, it was only the only Palangis that come down was a lawyer or police officer.
Yeah.
And I said,
True story.
I said, Sella's not here, but he's got the wrong guy anyway. Go tell him, you know. So coach goes back out, comes back in, and he goes, no, actually, they're starting a new team. He's a coach of some sort, and he wants to talk to you. So I go outside, and it's one of the original coaches for the Warriors, right? In the NRL squad. And they'd been accepted into the comp. This was early 90s. They'd been accepted in the comp, but they wanted to train up some young guys and start an academy type thing.
Yep.
So he sold it to me, right? Listen, we're going to do this. We're going to train here. We're going to be playing in the NRL in a few years.
Is this him to you?
They
Without
came to me down to
parents?
Grey Lynn. Yeah, I
So-
was just in.
and you-
I was in the change rooms. It was after Kalunga. I was probably, I might have been 16, 17 years old. Yeah, and
But that's weird in itself that he's speaking to you.
well, but now we know. Well, it's not weird, but it's like
No,
that's
but
how there was no rules back then.
Do you think?
When I say back then, it's not like
know.
it's not like I just got out the shower. It's like, it was finished the game and he approached the coach and then the coach come to see me. So they did go through, the senior of the team or whatever. But he, anyway, he was telling me all this stuff. We're going to do this. We're in the academy. We're getting the best kids in Auckland that we think, or around the country, around New Zealand, and we're going to prep you for da-da-da. Right? So he said, give me the spiel, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And at the end of it, he goes, you got any questions? And I went, I told you this. And I said, do I get a tracksuit? Because all I'm thinking is of my dad. My dad's going to go, what are we going to do here, And I'm like, okay, sweet. You get a tracksuit. And I said, okay, sweet, I'm in. And that was it. But you know what I didn't realize, and I wasn't really listening, right, is they trained on Sundays. Because we were never allowed to play on Sundays.
Yeah.
And
Good luck.
back in those days in New Zealand, like everything was shut on Sundays.
Closed.
Yeah. So it was like, Dad had to, but it was because my older cousin Joe was already in the system, and Joe's dad and my dad are brothers, right? But Joe's dad, he's the oldest brother. So because he let Joe go, my dad goes, okay, sweet, you can go.
Well, you're
you
lucky.
can miss Sunday school today.
Well, you're lucky then.
Yeah, and that's how it was. Yeah, but so Joe became almost like one of my older brother because he always cracked it before
Yeah.
I did. So he sort of broke the ceilings. And then, for years, I was like, is Joe doing it? Yep, sweet, I'm allowed. If he's allowed, I'm allowed. We ran on that.
It's funny that you say, though, the only question you wanted to know was, because I can imagine in your head going, oh, this sounds really cool. So if it's really cool, I must get some cool gear. I'm going to ask, do I get a tracksuit?
Yeah, because, like everybody's wearing the retro gears now.
But is that an island thing?
I don't know.
I can imagine it being that way. The problem
Well,
is...
actually, I think it actually could be an island thing because we have a mentality where, okay, how can I help the family with this opportunity?
No, okay, I was going to look at the other way.
Which way?
The first thing in your head, and I would have been the same. I want a tracksuit, but that's not the right way to go. You're looking at trying to get this gear instead of focusing on, okay, so what do I need to do to be a good athlete to be able to represent this team?
Yeah,
but at 16,
I wasn't even thinking that.
that's
No
what I mean.
chance.
16, nothing. You don't really know, right?
No.
So that's what I'm saying. Should you have known that?
But also in New Zealand at the time, we didn't have professional sports.
Yeah, this is true.
Because the Warriors were the first professional team in the country.
1982.
95, they kicked off, right? So this might have been 92, 93, something like that, right?
Yeah.
We're young guys. And it's like, because there's no academies here.
Yeah.
The All Blacks are around, but the All Blacks weren't professional. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there wasn't I know, like say in the States, they have their college system, been around for years, so you kind of get it as a kid.
Yep.
or as a teenager and you're sort of working your way through, but that didn't exist here. And if it didn't exist in that mentality in New Zealand, there's no way anyone in the islands was ever thinking about that. Because remember, our parents come from the islands. And they brought that mentality here, where it's like, man, we're islanders in New Zealand. But we need to survive in this new world. So how do we survive in this new world? And then we grew up there.